Welcome to class. Let's be dedicated. No, let's be dedicated. Jacob is out. So you're ready in class. In class. I should start. We're going to look at storing milk at home. Milk in the home should be stored in milk bottles, and they should not be left standing in the light. Ideally, milk should be packed in opaque bottles. As we saw earlier, milk has vitamin C, which is so little, and usually when you leave it exposed to sunlight, the vitamin is oxidized into something else. So, whenever we are storing milk, always ensure that it is put in an opaque bottle. And this will help to prevent loss of vitamin B and C. Then next, leave the bottle sealed if possible. When required, transfer to clean jugs. Never add fresh milk to milk which has been standing there already, because you can never know whether it is stale or it is still fresh. So whenever you get new batches of milk, the storage should be, if you put milk in a jar, let it be used first, then you wash and put in fresh milk. Then milk should be kept cool. Ideally, it should be put in a refrigerator. But where the refrigerator is not available, bottles should be left standing in a dish or in a container which contains salt water, covered with a clean muslin cloth and trailing into the water. Usually, this is what it should be. We have our container with water. Okay, then we have our bottle, our milk bottle, which should be in there, containing milk and well covered. Now you put on a muslin cloth and it should be trailing into the water. This, as the cloth absorbs the water, it evaporates as it reaches up, and then it goes down and it becomes cooler, and therefore there is a current of air circulating, cool air circulating around the bottle. So always put it in. This is supposed to be salt water. And this is our milk bottle, or the bottle containing milk. And this is the muslin cloth. Okay, it should be just trailing into the water. Again, milk should not be stored near strong smelling foods, whether outside the refrigerator or inside the refrigerator. Milk should never be stored near strong smelling foods. You just imagine a situation where you have a strong smelling food like fish, put in a container, and next to it, you put a jar of milk which is uncovered. The milk will easily absorb the smell of the fish. And consequently, imagine if you have to prepare tea. You bring out your tea, you bring out your milk, prepare tea, but when taking it is smelling fishy. That would be very disappointing. So the other onions, cheese, and things, okay, foods like that. Now, effects of heat on milk. That is what we are going to look at next. Milk is usually very fresh food. Okay? Now, but we know that it is being a good food, being a very nutritious food, also microorganisms do love milk. Okay? Now, how can we prevent it from going bad? We have looked at that. If we are at home, you store milk in bottles and never leave them standing in the sunlight, because the sun will oxidize both the vitamin C and B or destroy them. Then leave the bottles sealed if possible. And when required, just transfer the milk to a clean container. And never add fresh milk to milk which has already been there. And then you should keep it cool. If you have a refrigerator, that is the best. But if you don't have, then leave the milk bottle standing in a dish of salt water, covered with a muslin cloth which is trailing into the salt water. Then never store milk near strong smelling foods. Okay, those are the steps or the precautions which you should take at home when you're storing milk. Now, next we look at the effects of heat on milk. One, there is some loss of the B group vitamins and any remaining vitamin C. Remember earlier on, we said that milk has some little vitamin C as it leaves the udder of the cow. It has some little, but that vitamin C usually is destroyed during processing, storage, and the like, even heating. And consequently, we have to make sure that, whenever we take milk and we want vitamin C, we substitute it with a vitamin C rich food. But if you expose the milk to heat, the moment you heat, some of the big group vitamins and any remaining vitamin C will be destroyed. Then we find that on the taste, when you take milk, fresh milk tastes slightly different than when it is exposed to heat. There is that difference in taste. Then the pathogenic and souring bacteria are destroyed. Although the milk will still go bad in a few days if you leave it, if you just leave it there. Remember, when you cook, some of the pathogenic bacteria and those which make it go sour are destroyed. But if you leave it standing like that, the milk will eventually also go bad after some. In fact, after a day or two, you'll find that milk going bad unless you have stored it properly in a refrigerator or in covered bottle standing in salted water. Then the proteins coagulate as you heat the milk. If you are careful, before the milk reaches the boiling point, you find that it forms a skin on the surface of the milk. And that skin is a sure sign that the milk has coagulated. So milk will coagulate and form a skin on the surface of the milk. When the milk boils, it lifts the skin, and so the milk will boil over. Then milk in food preparation is the next we are looking at. Effects of heat. What do we have as the effects of heat? We have loss of vitamin B and any remaining vitamin C. Then the flavor is altered. Then the flavor is altered. Then there is destruction or killing. We say pathogenic. And souring bacteria are destroyed. Then finally, we have coagulation of the milk proteins. And as we have said, this is shown by formation of a skin on the surface. Okay, so those are the effects of heat on milk. Now, milk in food preparation. In other words, how do we use milk as we are preparing food? Okay, milk has many uses in food preparation. One, we can make it into drinks. We are looking at milk. Milk in food preparation. How do we use milk as we are preparing food? One, we can make it into drinks. Here we have both hot and cold. With hot, you can name tea, you can name hot chocolate, milky coffee, and the like. With cold, we have the milkshakes, and so many which we make from milk. Then we can use it when we are making soups. To make soups, especially whatever soup has cream of, okay? Cream of tomato, cream of onion, cream of vegetables, cream of chicken. All those soups are made using milk. Then we can use it to make sauces. I believe we know the difference between a soup and a sauce. A soup usually is the first course as we're serving the meal. Then a sauce is used to accompany some dry foods, like you have tomato sauce with chips. Okay. Now we can use milk in making soups, especially those with cream of. Whatever has cream of, you know that it has been made using milk. Then we have sauces. Here we have the white sauce, we have parsley sauce, bread sauce, and sometimes even, not sometimes, always, even the custard sauce has to have milk in it. Then we can use it to make butters. What is a butter? Usually a butter is a mixture of milk, eggs, and flour. It is milk, eggs, and flour. Okay? That mixture you make is called a butter. We can use it to coat foods. We can use it, we have so many uses of the butters. We can make puddings out of it, like the Yorkshire pudding. We can make a complete meal, like toad in the hole, using a butter. But all butters have to have milk in them as we are preparing them. Then we can, this is the, we can make the egg custard. Egg custard is usually a mixture of milk and egg. Usually we mix the two in equal proportions. If you're using around 50 mils of milk, then we have an egg, because an egg usually has around 50 mils. So we can make it to make egg custard. This is great because it is very nutritious. It is used when feeding babies and even the sick and even the elderly, because they need the protein, they need the calcium, and they need everything which the egg custard will provide. Then we can use it to make the milk-based puddings. We can use it to make milk-based puddings, like the rice pudding, like the jellies, milk jelly, and the like. Then we use it usually in baked goods. When you are making a cake, one of the ingredients which is used as a liquid is milk. When you're making bread, when you're making scones, okay, all of those have milk as part of the ingredient. Then we can use milk to glaze. And this is again with baked goods. Glazing is giving a baked product that brown, shiny surface. Milk does that effectively. As you are going to bake bread, before you put it in the oven, you want the crust to come out brown and shiny. All you do is to brush with some little milk, and so are other baked products. Now, those are some of the uses of milk in food preparation. We use it in drinks, soups, sauces, butters, egg custard, milk puddings, baked goods, and we use it as a glaze. Now we move ahead and look at cream now. And we know that cream is a product of milk. Now, what is cream? Cream, we say, is a product of milk. When milk is collected, after milking the cow, when you leave that milk to stand for some time, you leave it to stand for some time, some hours, you'll find that on checking the milk, it is now no longer that uniform liquid you got out of the cow. Instead, now it has some kind of thick layer which is floating on surface of the lighter layer down. The lighter layer is milk and the thick layer is cream. Cream is an emulsion of fat, or is an emulsion of fat into the milk layer. Milk, as you saw earlier, has protein, has fat, has water. Okay? But the fat in the milk comes as an emulsion. It is dispersed into the milk water. But when you leave the milk to stand for some time, the fat being lighter will now start collecting on the surface of the milk, forming what we call a cream layer. So cream is an emulsion of fat into milk. Usually it is light and it will float on top of the milk. Now, milk contains all the main components. Cream will contain all the milk components, but the fat content is usually higher, and the quality of non-fat solids and water is lower. Fat content is higher in cream than milk, and the non-fat solids and water are lower. Okay. Now, milk is left to stand. And when you let it stand, you can remove the fat layer. Now, when that fat layer is removed, it is pasteurized to 79.5 degrees, and then it is cooled to 4.5 degrees Celsius. And that, when it is done like that, then that cream is ready for packaging. Types of cream. We have several types of cream. We have clotted cream, but before we look at the names, the name of the cream usually signifies the amount of or the percentage of fat present in that cream. Then, we have the first one is clotted cream. This has around 55% fat. Then we have double cream. Double cream will have about 48% fat. Then we have whipping cream. And the whipping cream is usually about 35% fat. Then we have the single cream. Single cream is usually around 18% fat. Then we have half cream. The half cream is usually around 12% fat. Then we have sterilized cream. Sterilized cream. And this one is usually around 23% fat. Okay? Usually, the name of the cream will give you the amount of fat which is present in that type of cream. Curded cream is usually thicker and it has a lot of fat in it. And whipping cream, this one, we usually employ it when we are making those mixtures, milk-based mixtures or cream mixtures, which need to be light because it traps a lot of air and it forms bubbles, okay? A lot of bubbles very easily. This is what they use when they're making ice cream, when they're, and things like that. Okay, manufacture of cream. How is cream made? Milk is left to stand for 24 hours, and during this time, the cream forms a layer on the surface and can be skimmed off by mechanical separators at a temperature of 35 to 54 degrees Celsius. The cream is then cooled to 4.5 degrees and stored until processed. The cream is then pasteurized in the similar way milk is pasteurized. How is milk pasteurized? By letting it boil up to 72 degrees, held at that temperature for a minute or two, then cooled rapidly. Okay, the cream is then pasteurized, and pasteurization will improve on the storing qualities of the cream, and it makes it safe to eat. Then we have single and half cream needs to be homogenized to prevent separation because of their relatively low fat content. This is usually, it is the single cream or half cream which has the lowest percentage of fat, that is 12%. Now, this one has to be homogenized. As we looked at milk, I think we now know what homogenization is. Passing the cream into small apertures at a temperature. First of all, it is pasteurized, then it is passed through small apertures, and those will make the cream or will make the fat disperse into the cream evenly and preventing them from massing up again. Now that cream, it needs to be homogenized to prevent it from separation before storage. Then we have sterilized cream is heated either in bottles or cans to up to 116 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. It has a different flavor compared to the fresh cream. Then we have the ultra heat treated cream. This is also similar in a way to the ultra heated milk, and it can be kept unopened in foil. It is usually put in foil lined cartons, and if you do not open the carton, that one can keep for several months when it is still fresh. This is usually the cream we buy in those cartons in supermarkets. Then we have the long life cream. This is sold in jars, in which it is pasteurized at 65.5 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes and then cooked to 4.5 degrees Celsius for storage. This will keep longer than fresh cream, but for less time than the sterilized cream. Then we have the cultured or soured cream. This is the cream to which microorganisms have been introduced. Usually, just in the similar way, we have yogurt made. Microorganisms are introduced to the cream to sour it, and it is sometimes called the sour cream. Then we have the long life double and whipping cream. This is usually available in pasteurized cans. Those are the types of creams we have. We have single and half cream. We have the ultra heated cream. We have the long life cream. We have the cultured or soured cream. And we have the long life double and whipping cream. Next, we look at the nutrient content of cream. Nutrient content of cream. I think milk and cream have similar nutrients. It is the concentration, especially of fat, which will differ. We have protein. Cream has protein, and it is about 2 to 3% protein. Then it has fat. The fat present contains both monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acids. Then it has carbohydrate. This is in form of lactose, which is the sugar we find in milk. Then it has calcium. And the amount varies according to the fat content. The lower the fat, the higher the amount of calcium. Here we say this vary according to the fat present. The higher the fat, if the fat is high, then the lower calcium is low. Okay? The higher the fat content, the lower the calcium content, and vice versa. Then it also has retinol, which is vitamin A. It has retinol, and it also has vitamin D. Okay? So usually, the higher the fat content, the higher the levels of these vitamins, and the lower the fat content, the lower the levels of the retinol and vitamin D. So, all in all, nutritionally, or the nutrient content of milk, it has protein present, it has fat, and it has, in the fat we said it has both the unsaturated, and the polyunsaturated. Okay, it has both mono unsaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acids present. It has carbohydrate in form of lactose. It has calcium. The calcium will vary according to the fat present. The higher the fat, the lower the calcium, and vice versa. Then it has retinol. Retinol, as we know, is vitamin, or we put it in brackets, it is vitamin A. It is the animal source of the animal form of vitamin A. It has retinol, that is vitamin A, and it has vitamin D. And also these will vary according to the amount of fat present. The higher the fat, the higher the amount of vitamin A and vitamin D present. If the fat is low, then the retinol and vitamin D will also be low. Then, okay, next we look at the uses of cream in food preparation. How do we use cream as we are preparing food? Uses of cream in food preparation. Uses of cream in food preparation. How do we use cream? Cream can be used in drinks. You make your coffee, serve it with a dollop of cream on the surface. That is using cream. It makes it more tastier, more silkier, and it makes it even smoother. We use it in drinks like coffee. We use it in milk shakes. As we are making a shake, one of the ingredients we use is cream. We have our milk, we have our fruit, because usually shakes are fruit based. Then we have cream. It is the combination of those and then blending them that will give us a shake. So how do we use it? We have it, cream, we use it in drinks. And here we have given an example of coffee. We have milk shakes. Then we have also hot chocolate. We also use it in hot chocolate. Then how else do we use cream? In sauces and soups. Cream gives that a soup a richer taste. And it even, I may call it even superior. Then we use it in fillings. For cakes and pastries. It can be used as a filling for a cake. You are making a cake for an occasion and you want it sandwiched in the middle there. We put cream. We can even in pastries, we usually include cream as one of the ingredients. Then we can Use it in making puddings and souffles. Then we can use it when we're making dips and toppings. A dip usually is a sauce made especially with cream, and we use our dry foods too. We use it to eat dry foods. You dip the dry food into that creamy sauce, which we call a dip, and then you consume. Then cream making at home. How do we make cream at home? How do we make cream at home? We have a recipe here. The recipe gives us 150 grams cream, 150 grams butter. Then we have 115 mils milk. These are the ingredients for cream when you want to make cream at home. Have your stick of butter, which should be around 150 grams, then 150 mils milk. Then what do? You pour the milk into a saucepan, add the butter, and put in a pan over gentle heat until the fat has melted. Okay? Put your milk into a pan. Add butter to that milk and put over gentle heat until the butter is melted. Then you leave the mixture to cool. Then you get that butter and milk mixture and put them into a blender at top speed for 30 seconds. After that, the resultant mixture you get is cream. Okay? And all you do is to put that cream into a jar and refrigerate. Storage of cream at home. How do we store cream at home? Fresh cream should be stored in a cool, dark place. Fresh cream should be put in a cool, dark place, away from strong smelling foods, and it should be covered. And it should be used within the recommended time by the manufacturer. Okay? The storage, should be away from. Then single cream should not be frozen, because if you freeze it on thawing, it will separate. You'll have the liquid and the solid part alone. Then whipped cream and double cream should only be frozen if they are lightly whipped first. Frozen cream keeps up to a year in a freezer. Okay? That is cream. That is cream. Next, we look at cheese. Cheese usually is preserved milk. It is a form of preserving the solid part of milk. So cheese is a method of preserving nutrients of milk when it is in plentiful. Making of cheese is also a means of preserving the food value of milk in a condensed form, which can be stored long after the milk itself would have soured. It is a convenient way of utilizing surplus milk throughout the year. Types of cheese. Cheese can be classified according to how it is manufactured and the ingredients used. It can be classified or named after the place of origin. Okay? One, we have what we call hard pressed cheese. This contains less water. Example, we have the cheddar, the Derby, Cheshire, double Gloucester, and Leicester. All those are hard cheese. Then we have the lightly pressed cheeses. These are soft cheese. They contain a higher percentage of water and does not keep as well as the hard cheese. Example, we have the Lancashire and Wensleydale. Then we have the blue veined cheese. Iggy Blue Stilton, Blue Wensleydale, the blue-green vein, usually the blue-green veining in the cheese, because that is where it gets its name from, the blue veined cheeses. It has blue veins which go through the cheese, and that is usually molds are deliberately introduced into the cheese as during the as it is being manufactured. As it matures, those molds are injected into the cheese mold, and consequently they grow inside, forming those veins, which can clearly be seen when the cheese is cut through. Then we have the acid curd cheese. This here, here we have the curd cheese, cottage cheese. Those are acid curd cheeses. Then we have the processed cheeses, and we have the cream cheeses. These are unripened, and therefore they have a very mild cheese flavor. Production, manufacture of cheese. How is cheese made? Manufacture of cheese. Now, one, we have the pasteurized fresh milk being pumped into large vats. Okay? We have the pasteurized milk. Is put into vats, pumped into vats. Then the next stage is special bacteria culture. A bacteria is added. Now, when the bacteria culture is added, find that the bacteria will convert the lactose into lactic acid. And that once the lactic acid is produced, it will help to preserve the cheese. Then we have the milk. After the introduction of the bacteria, the milk is then heated the milk is heated to 30 degrees Celsius. Then this one, after heating up to that, then there is an enzyme is added. The enzyme is called renin. The enzyme is renin, but what is added is usually renate. Okay, that renate will release the renin enzyme. Then this one, once this enzyme is added, the milk will clot. Renate is added to clot. Renate is added to clot the milk. Then after, okay, this is because the protein carcinogen, which is found in the milk, will clot on addition of this enzyme. Now, after that, oh, by the way, when there is a difference, we know cheese can be eaten by both the vegetarian and non-vegetarian. For the vegetarian cheese, a non-animal, this one, renin, is an enzyme found usually in the stomach of young animals. Okay? But if they're producing cheese for the vegetarian, a non-animal enzyme is added and it is called chymosin. It is chymosin. This is non-animal enzyme and it is for the vegetarians. Okay? It is for the vegetarian. If they are producing vegetarian cheeses, then a non-animal enzyme called chymosin is added. Then after addition of the enzyme, the milk will now set. In other words, it forms a large clot. Now, after the clot has been formed, this is allowed to react for some 30 to 45 minutes. Then the milk will clot. A clot is formed. Now, the curd, which is now the formed clot, consists of coagulated carcinogen plus 80% of the calcium in milk, plus fat-soluble vitamins and some of the thiamine. Thiamine is vitamin B1. The whey, mostly, because now the milk is going to form a clot. But remember, it is a liquid. The clot are the solid parts of the milk. Now the non-solid or the water Okay, it forms the clot. Okay, that is the solid part of the milk. But information after formation of the clot, there is that liquid. A liquid will remain, and that liquid is known as whey. That is the liquid part of the milk when we are manufacturing cheese. Now the whey is mostly water plus some water-soluble vitamins, lactose, and some minerals and proteins, and the protein lactoalbumin and lactoglobulin. That is whey. Whey has water, water-soluble vitamins, and we know that we have vitamin B present now. The vitamin C would have been destroyed by exposure to air and even cooking. So we have the water-soluble vitamins. We have the proteins, lactoalbumin and lactoglobulin. That is the whey. And this one usually is not so much useful because it is drained off. Then the curd is cut with special knives to release as much whey as possible. After that clot, now we call a curd. Okay? Now that curd, the curd is cut with special knives into small, okay, pieces so that we can now get off as much of the whey as possible. And the whey is usually drained off. The curd is now scalded after draining off the whey. After cutting, draining off the whey, the curd is scalded. It is heated up to 37 to 40 degrees Celsius for 40 to 45 minutes, while being stirred to help to expel the whey and gain the correct consistency. Okay? Drainage of the curd continues and the curd will settle, and it is cut into blocks. The blocks are piled on top of each other. This will help them, as one is put on top of each other, it will help them to express, to remove again more of the whey. And it is repiled and exchanged at constant intervals so that draining is completed. And that process of piling the curd blocks and interchanging them to express out as much whey as possible is what they call shadering. It is called shadering. Okay? Then the curd may then be cut with a meal into small chips, and 2% salt is added for flavor and even to preserve the cheese. After shadering, okay, then the curd is again cut into smaller pieces. Then those pieces, onto those pieces, salt is added. Okay, salt is put. The aim of the salt is to give the cheese or the curd taste and even to preserve it. Preservation and even giving the curd the taste. Then after that, the curd is pressed hard for 24 hours. it is put, and then blocks are put on top so that they press, they squeeze out as much of the liquid as possible. And that after that is done, it is piled into, or it is packed into metal molds lined with cheesecloth. The card is then pressed for 20, okay. And after the pressing, hot water, very hot water, it is called scalding, is sprayed onto the card. Remember, this is a protein, okay? And once the protein are heated, usually they coagulate. Now spraying the cheese card with water, very hot water, will coagulate the surface protein, and therefore it forms a seal around the cheese, preventing any microorganisms from entering into the cheese. And that is what we call the rind, which is formed, and the purpose is to protect the cheese inside. The cheese is then removed, date stamped, and left to ripen at 10 degrees Celsius for about 4 months. During this time, the characteristics, flavor, smell, and texture of cheese are developed. And as a result of enzyme and bacterial activity, mature cheddar is left to ripen for 12 months. At the end of the ripening period, the cheese is graded according to its flavor, texture, appearance, and color. Okay? Okay. And color. Okay. Okay, we look at processed cheese. Processed cheese is made by thoroughly mixing cheddar and other cheeses. The cheese is ground and mixed with an emulsifying agent and perhaps additional flavors. The cheese is heated in a steam-jacketed vat to melt and pasteurize it. Pasteurizing will destroy bacteria and enzymes, and so preventing it from further ripening. Then the cheese is poured into foil-lined containers and sealed and allowed to set. It is thus protected and will keep for a long time. Processed cheese can be blended to ensure uniform flavor and texture. It usually contains fat and more moisture than fresh cheese, and it is more easily digested. Uses of processed cheese. How do we use processed cheese? One, we can use it for snack meals, like make a cheese sandwich and the like. Then you can, some small snacks, like, what can I name? which is made of cheese crackers and the like. Okay, those are the two uses. We can use it for sandwiches and even making snacks. Cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is made from pasteurized milk, to which a special starter is added to develop texture, flavor, and brought about by natural souring of the milk and by lactic acid. It produces a curd, which is cut into small cubes and slowly heated until it reaches the required texture. The whey is drained off. Now we know what whey is. That is the liquid part of cheese. After introduction of the bacteria and even the enzyme, the milk will clot, forming that clot, which we call the curd, and the liquid is whey. Okay? So the whey is drained off and it is okay, and it is allowed to. It is usually contains the clot or the curd, the remnant curd, will always have less fat, more moisture than fresh cheese. Uses of processed cheese. One, it is used for snack. We mentioned the snack meals and even sandwiches. We are looking at cottage cheese. This is the cheese bought from pasteurized skimmed milk. Skimmed milk is milk to which fat has been removed. Okay? And the product usually, cottage cheese, is made from skimmed milk, which means it has less fat. After the draining of the whey, the curd is washed and cooled. Cream and salt are added, and if required, further flavorings such as chives or chopped pineapple are thoroughly blended into it before it is packed. Cottage cheese is easily digested and a valuable source of protein and riboflavin, that is B2, vitamin B2. It does not keep well, and it should be eaten while still fresh. Then we have the curd cheese. We have the curd cheese. This is made from skimmed or partially skimmed milk, which has been soured naturally by lactic acid bacteria. By a special starter or at home, lemon juice may be added. The resulting curds and whey are separated by straining. Salt and cream may be added. Curd cheese is rich in protein and is easily digested, but yeasts and molds grow on the surface within a few days, and the flavor becomes unpleasant. Then we have the cream cheese. Cream cheese is not true cheese, but it is made from cream, which is with a fat content of 30 to 60%. This is soft cheese made by cultivating cream rather than milk, and that is why it is called cream cheese. It is made using cream rather than milk. And the cream is cultured with lactic acid bacteria. When the curd is thick enough, it is drained and salt is added if desired. It has a leather buttery texture because it is very soft and creamy. And a higher content of milk fat gives it a creamy appearance. There are two types of cream cheese. We have the single cream cheese, made from single cream with a maximum fat content of 20 to 25%. It will keep for a short time in a fridge. Then we have the double cream cheese made from cream containing 50 to 55% butter fat. And it will not keep quite so long. Then we have the blue veined cheeses. These are produced by introduction. As I told you, it is the molds are inoculated into the cheese mold just before scalding. And as they grow, they produce those green or blue veins in the cheese. It has a characteristic flavor of cheese. Nutritive value of cheese. Cheese is a very nutritive food. And the nutrients include the following. Protein. It has carcinogen of about 25 to 30%. And there is almost twice as much protein in cheese as the same weight of beef. 50 grams of cheese will yield more protein than 50 grams of beef. Then it has fat. Cheese has a high fat content, containing approximately 30 to 40% fat. Then it has mineral salts, mineral elements, and it is one of the richest sources of both calcium and phosphorus. Vitamins. Cheese is a good source of vitamin A, that is riboflavin, and then A, which is retinol, and B2, which is riboflavin. Cheese has water. About 35% of cheese is water, depending on the amount of pressure during manufacture. There is no carbohydrate in cheese. And so that is why, in order for it to be digested well, usually it has to be eaten with a carbohydrate food. You find it being served with toasted bread, cheese with toasted bread, then macaroni cheese, and the like. It is usually added, cassava cheese added to a carbohydrate food to make it more easily digested. Then, digestibility of cheese. Now, cheese is a difficult food to digest. Why? Because it has a high content of fat, and fat is one of the nutrients which is not easy to digest. When you look at the composition of cheese, you'll find that it has around 35% fat, around 35% protein, and around 30% water. Okay? because it is a highly concentrated food with a lot of fat, with a lot of protein. Cheese is not an easy food to digest. The fat usually forms, you see, it has fat, protein, but the fat will form a coating. If this is our protein, the fat, this layer is going to be fat, and this is the protein. It forms a coating around the protein. And for that matter, it becomes very difficult to digest because even as when you look at the digestion of nutrients, when you look at the carbohydrate, digestion will start in the mouth. When you look at the protein, digestion will start in the stomach. When you look at the fat, digestion will start in the duodenum. That is the first part of the small intestine. So cheese is a very difficult food to digest because the fat forms a waterproof layer coating around the protein, preventing the stomach juices from reaching the casein readily. The larger the lumps of cheese, the more difficult it will be to digest. The digestion of fat does not begin until it reaches the duodenum, and that is where we have completion of digestion of protein, and it cannot begin there. Why cheese should be eaten cooked? Why do we cook cheese? Cheese is highly concentrated, especially with fat. And we've said that the fat forms a layer around the protein. So when we cook, when we heat, it will help us to melt this fat layer around the protein, exposing the protein and making it ready and easy to digest. Cheese contains a large percentage of fat. As we have seen, 35% is fat. And the fatty acids may be irritating to the digestive system. When you eat cheese and you eat it alone, you just cut a slice of cheese and start chewing on it. Usually, after some time, you find that your tummy is not, the stomach is not so much at ease because of the difficulty of cheese digestion. And if it is overcooked, the protein becomes tough and stringy. It becomes tough and stringy. What should we do to aid the digestion of cheese? 1. Divide the cheese finely before serving, either by grating or shredding. This helps to break down the structure of the cheese particles and make the protein more easily accessible to the digestive enzymes. When you grate, when you shred, you are exposing some of the protein to the digestive enzymes, which makes cheese digestion a little bit much easier. Then serve with a highly flavored seasoning, such as vinegar or mustard. The smell of the mustard, of the vinegar, will stimulate the digestive enzymes, which will start flowing at once, and therefore the cheese will find the stomach ready to receive and digest it. Then, usually, we can even serve it with a protein, a carbohydrate food. The carbohydrate will help to absorb the fat, making the protein more easily accessible. Okay, to aid. Okay, what is it?
Finalizing.
Huh?
Finalizing.
Okay, to aid digestion of cooked cheese. 1. Divide finely before cooking. You grate or shred. Then 2. Avoid overcooking the cheese because once you overcook, the protein. Yeah? Okay. Okay. Avoid overcooking because if you overcook, the protein hardens and becomes stringent and less easily digested. Then serve it with some highly flavored seasonings such as mustard or vinegar. Then avoid serving cheese at late meals, especially at night, because it becomes even more difficult to digest. And okay, those are the 4 or 5 measures which can aid digestion of cheese. Methods of cooking cheese. Okay, methods of cooking cheese. We have 1. Grating and mixing into starchy substances, e.g. mashed potatoes, or it can be used as a foundation of white sauces. We can grill because by grilling, you are melting the cheese and therefore you are melting the fat and making the protein more easily available to the digestive juices. Then you can fry the cheese, and when you are frying, add a teaspoon of boiling water to grated cheese immediately if it is put into a pan to prevent it from becoming stringy and therefore less easily digested. Then we can bake using a hot oven, which will melt again the fat. Effects of heat on cheese. When cheese is exposed to heat, the fat will melt, and the protein that is carcinogen continues to coagulate. Overheating causes the protein to toughen and become stringy, reducing the digestibility, and eventually the cheese will burn. Value of cheese in the diet. How do we use cheese in the diet? It is a food rich in nutritive value. It has protein, calcium, retinol, and riboflavin. It is extremely concentrated food and therefore it is economical. It is very economical because, as we saw earlier, the 50 grams of cheese yields much more protein than 50 grams of beef. Then there is very little waste. This is because almost all the cheese is eaten. It is only when the rind is present that is the only thing you remove. But the whole thing is edible and can be digested. And it is easily transported. And therefore, it is very valuable for the people who require packed meals. And it is even convenient when we are transporting it. And it is suitable for children and old people adding valuable calcium to their diets, as well as for sedentary and manual workers, vegetarian and invalids. But as for the invalids, you have to be very careful. As for the invalids, you have to be careful when using it because depending on the disease, cheese is not an easy food to digest. It can be eaten raw or cooked as a main dish or even as an accompaniment. It is available in a large variety of textures and prices, and it is valuable for its distinctive flavors. Storage of cheese. How do we store cheese at home?
Winding up. It's almost time.
Okay. Next time we shall look at storage of cheese. That is where we are going to start from. Please, I believe you have the notes. And for those who do not have, make sure that you write everything. Have a nice time. Be careful, stay safe. Bye. Okay. Yes, and for those who do not have, as a main dish, write everything. That is where we are going to start from. Please, I believe you have the notes. And for those who do not have, make sure that you write everything. Yes, have a nice time.